and welcome to the Wednesday Night War Preview Podcast. I'm Adam Wilborn from WhatCulture, joined by one of the Dadley boys, Michael Sidgwick, who just popped in to get some stuff to work from home and now has been dragged onto this podcast.
Yes, I came in to collect my brand new work from home laptop, generously gifted to me by the management of WhatCulture. And I thought, while you're setting up, I'm going to get Metro home anyway, so why not do some video content? And the haters can just, suck it. So.
So I am joined by paid AEW shill, Michael Sidgwick, and for today, paid NXT shill.
Absolutely not.
Okay, Andy Murray to preview tonight's episodes of NXT and AEW Dynamite. But before we get into it, if you're a fan of this sort of thing, make sure you subscribe to WhatCulture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts from, for daily wrestling podcasts, where we not only review the Wednesday Night War, but also Raw, SmackDown, pay-per-views. We have interviews, roundtable discussions, and a roundup of the week, complete with a bloody good quiz, of course, on WrestleCulture. But as I said, joined by Andy Murray and Michael Sidgwick to look ahead to tonight's episodes. And I suppose I should start off by asking what these shows are going to look like. We've seen empty arena Raws and SmackDowns. How do you think, maybe not NXT so much, because it's probably going to be akin to what we've seen on Raw and SmackDown, but certainly how do you think AEW are going to present tonight's show?
Well, after some confusion online, it appears that Dynamite will emanate from Daly's Place, which we've seen at Fight for the Fallen and the Homecoming edition, New Year's Day edition of Dynamite. And it looks absolutely gorgeous. It's a beautiful amphitheater, very different to the traditional pro wrestling look. But as with literally every single pro wrestling venue ever that isn't the Hardy Compound, it will require an atmosphere that isn't there to get over. Look, I'm not just being the AEW shill. My personal opinion, and you can take it or leave it, is that this company, and surely it's been evidenced enough, is just far more creative in how they do things than WWE and, for that matter, NXT. I understand the essential staff-only policy, both from a practical level and for a health level. But if the guys are there already, you have to expect they'll be running through the matches backstage. Like I imagine, and people have said from the WCPW experience, that to get everything in line, it's a very intense, scurrying atmosphere backstage at a pro wrestling show, especially like this one, where it's so unknown. Basically, what I'm getting at is that there's going to be a lot of co-mingling backstage, whether that's advisable or not. It's not for me to say. I'm not the one who gave the go-ahead for this light. If there's going to be a lot of co-mingling backstage, surely in separate scattered seats in the front row, you can have the inner circle heckle the baby faces.
Sammy Guevara with his signs.
Yeah, like surely you can do something vaguely creative with the audience at play, and I expect them to do this to emulate an atmosphere to some extent.
Yeah, I think they're going to figure something out. I'm taking the Philadelphia 76ers. Trust the process, baby. They've given me no reason not to so far. With regards to like what it'll look like, Daly's Place is kind of a cool one because it won't look that much different. Like the default hard cam on Daly's Place, I believe, only shows like a couple of rows of fans anyway, because you got the big screen right beside the ring and the ramp is at a weird angle and stuff. So I think like aesthetically it'll look all right. It's obviously just the atmosphere. As far as the NXT show goes, well, Big Dave Meltzer tweeted last night saying that there's going to be no matches. It's all going to be in-studio content, vignettes and packages and stuff. So I think we'll get the old AEW Dark thing with Mauro Ranallo in front of a green screen with lots of stuff. Maybe he'll be in an empty performance center. Maybe he'll be on that little balcony thing that Triple H was on, just introducing content, saying, here, let's take a look back at Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa. And we'll maybe get more things with Johnny Gargano, like cutting weird promos and stuff. I'm always game for that. You always get a meme out of it, at least. That's what that'll be.
Yeah, what do you make of NXT's decision? I saw Adam Cleary, the host of NXT Ups and Downs on Thursdays, panicking slightly, as he found out there's going to be no wrestling matches. But at the end of the day, this is something WWE does very well when it comes to video packages and the like.
It's the best part of the company by an absolute considerable distance. Their video production department, and this incorporates both NXT and the main roster, is just so deft and so clever at extracting fairly unremarkable verbiage and just framing it in such a way and adding a soundtrack to it and editing it in such a way that it feels like epic and big time. Get worked into getting excited about virtually any pay-per-view WWE match. just from the video packages alone. So I expect a very polished, professional show that might even artificially elevate some of the feuds that I'm not personally that invested in, like Charlotte Flair, Rhea Ripley, for me, is mid as hell. I think it's a sensible decision because when you think about the sheer amount of human traffic going in and out of that performance center split between the Raw, SmackDown, and NXT crews, ultimately, it's like sort of a hive for the unfolding events that we have to refer to them as. I just think you'd realistically, given the amount of traffic going in and out of there, the primary concerns of Raw and SmackDown will get sort of priority. You'd expect, given the importance of those shows over NXT. You want to limit how many people are in any given room, unfortunately, anywhere on the planet. And I think that is the basis for the reason why we're not getting any wrestling on NXT.
Aside from the question of how these shows are going to look tonight, the big question going into the Wednesday Night War is, of course, who is the Exalted One? It's going to be surreal to have this reveal because, you know, whatever your association with big reveals of storylines, it is usually associated with a crowd reaction of some sort.
Pop, man,
And it's going to be dead silence when, well, I suppose we assume Brody Lee is revealed to be the Exalted One. Is it that simple?
Yeah, it's if it is Brody Lee, it's a real shame because they had the opportunity to do this in his hometown in Rochester, New York, and it would have got the biggest pop of all time. Maybe not of all time. it would have got a good pop. I wonder, and I don't know if this is necessarily something AEW would do because it's kind of dangling the carrot and then pulling it away. I wonder if maybe they'll do a red herring reveal this week and maybe go, Christopher Daniels is the Exalted One, but it's not really because it's just Christopher Daniels proving that the Exalted One doesn't really exist. And then maybe save off on the reveal. But the problem with that is, number one, it's the old WWE thing of advertising something and not really delivering on it. And then, of course, as well, we've no idea how long this thing's going to go on for. We could be looking at 3, 4, 5, 6 months of empty arena shows, God forbid. So there's such a risk. I'm really interested to see what they do. The red herring thing can't be taken off the table, though, I don't think.
I think circumstances might enforce the red herring because they are ultimately facing the unknown. They've got like television contractual obligations to fulfill. And that, unfortunately, given the tear they're on, given how rare a wrestling promotion can just go on an all cylinders blast of awesomeness that has been AEW Dynamite in 2020, like the sad truth of the matter is that their artistic peak could coincide with this just awful atmosphere that I'm a huge fan of the product and what they're doing. I don't think that's a particular secret, but it all could just unfold under the shadow of just this awfulness. And, you know, ultimately, who cares? If a wrestling promotion doesn't do the best work and it's not sort of rewarded by fate, ultimately, who cares? We're in a very drastic situation. Yeah, it's just bad.
Is there a way to get around it using a creeper's mask, maybe, where he reveals himself but he doesn't properly reveal himself?
The old double mask. Nah, I generally think we'll see the reveal tonight. I expect, given the whole MO of that promotion, it's all about, like, they've never luxuriated, and they could have easily done, considering how popular it was, considering how established the two guys were to a mainstream audience. If they wanted to take the risk-free approach to their storytelling and the way they promote things, they could easily have done 2 or 3 rematches between Cody and Chris Jericho, given how hot that program was. They've completely left it to one side. They've parked it ahead of Blood and Guts, but the singles world title feud, which was blown off in one match, exactly the sort of stuff wrestling fans have been crying out for. And AEW, in effect, quite cynically, is a promotion that is drafted a huge checklist of fan complaints and decided to just tick them off one by one. And I think one of them is the bait and switch. They'll not do that for me, even tonight under these circumstances. And I fully expect to see Brody Lee revealed as the Exalted One, because using a bit of detective work, the process I've arrived at this is just pure deductive reasoning. You can line up all your candidates and you can knock them off one by one. Basically, how much have they played their hand? Raven, yes, very cute. Matt Hardy, the verbiage, they've planted so many red herrings that the purpose of a red herring is to misdirect you. It will not be Matt Hardy. I think the only person they've only vaguely alluded to the extent that it will make sense when it is him, is in fact Brody Lee.
Yeah, I can't see anyone else really being revealed, but who knows tonight? One final thing about this before we move on is how do they do the reveal? Because when you think about big wrestling reveals, you think of Vince McMahon under the hood. You think of them just going, oh yeah, it was Hornswoggle. You know, how are they going to do it tonight?
It was me, Tony.
The problem is that without an audience to sell the gravity of it, somebody has to sell the gravity of this big reveal because it's been framed as something absolutely gigantic for months at this point. My worry is that looking at Raw, my God, that Undertaker. Why did they do the Undertaker parlor trick in that context? It looked ridiculous. The lights went out in the Performance Center. You could hear bloody Big Batch Calloway crawl agonized out of the ring. You could then hear a stagehand go, he's in place. And then the lights went, it just looked ridiculous.
I think I heard Mark go, oh, my bloody back, as he got out of the ring.
My bloody back's gone.
Hey, bagum.
I don't know why he's from Yorkshire or Lancashire. I've got no idea.
Got the tea, Michelle.
About anything at this point. But my point is that wrestling is already an inherent farce, and I love it for it. But that farce is just brought into the most sharp of relief in this sort of empty arena context. Either nobody sells it, and it looks like Amdram Theatre rehearsal, much less the actual Amdram production, or it happens in front of SCU, because I think it'll happen at the end of the Christopher Daniels versus Evil Uno match, and SCU have to go overboard and campy and exaggerated
And
to
who
sell
else
it.
would you want, right?
I mean, yes, but they might be too funny with it. I've got no idea how this is going to do it.
Something they could do, and this is a big benefit of the Dark Order gimmick in itself, and this might be made impossible by the limit of people you can have in rooms and stuff, but they could get a massive army of creepers to really put this over as well, right? Like just have them freaking out, maybe being a bit less problematic than they were in the past with their facial expressions and arm movements. Don't do that again, please, brothers. Nope. But you could have an army of bodies in there with their little masks going, oh, whoa! That'd be quite good. Do a cartwheel, why not?
Andy Murray, just to lift the lid on WhatCulture's dealings, because we might as well cut loose with this sort of content. Andy Murray has promised the lads at WhatCulture that at some point he's just going to pop a cartwheel in the office, apropos of nothing, just to pop us.
I'm saving it. It's going to be like the first Burning Hammer. It's going to be amazing. Amazing.
A couple of matches that will be on TV tonight are on Dynamite. We're getting Jurassic Express versus The Butcher and the Blade. Before we get to that one, though, we're also getting Best Friends versus Lucha Bros. This could be spectacular.
Yeah, this could be awesome, man. Part of the build towards what seems like an inevitable trios match of Orange Cassidy and Pac. Death Triangle, of course, with their banger new entrance theme.
Lucha Bros.
It's just an evil version of the current Lucha Bros theme. It's wonderful. Yeah, this will be a lot of fun. Chucky T and Trent, quietly one of the most entertaining acts in all of wrestling, on Twitter, in the ring, on the mic. They're just tremendous.
They've really hit their groove feuding with these two as well, haven't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or these three, I should say.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm loving Best Friends at the moment. Like, they cut a backstage promo the other week where Trent was just topless and Chucky T was just sort of like, just mystified by this. He's like, well, I'm going out to fight. I'm going to pop my shirt off. And it's just like, it's kind of like a vein of It's Always Sunny, like, chemistry between those three lads. I absolutely love it. If I'm going to be unbiased in my assessment of this upcoming match, it would be remiss of me not to point out that there was this super weird mini program between Best Friends and Lucha Bros, between Full Gear and Revolution, that was weirdly 50-50. Yeah. Phoenix, who's awesome, makes my jaw drop every single week. He was at one of his points, which hopefully will be negated now that he's on a different schedule. He looked thrashed during his matches, and I think they did a tag and he did a singles match with Trent. So, yeah. It never amounted to anything. The results, I think, went 50-50. Because they match with Pentagon and Doc. It was all this weird, confusing, pointless, underwhelming, inconsequential program between these two. So let's not forget that, because I'm unbiased.
Jurassic Express versus Butcher and Blade is going ahead tonight. No Marco Stunt, unfortunately. He is not feeling well. Get well soon, of course. But despite that, 4 men who can do some really good stuff together.
2 of my favorite banter wrestlers of all time combined
Can a
in one
dinosaur
match.
get ill? I disregard that.
Can a butcher get ill? This is the question. I'm really disappointed that we're going to miss out on the wonderful sight of that just fascinating individual, the butcher. I just love
butcher's
watching
awesome.
him. He's something else, isn't he? Like it's the monocle, it's the mustache, it's the kind of way he walks. It's that weird thing he does where he lunges on his knees around the ring. I absolutely adore this big bear of a man, and I really wanted to see him clotheslining the hell out of Marco Stunt, maybe out of the sky. Imagine how fun that would have been. But Marco Stunt is ill.
Carry on.
What did he call him?
No, I can't repeat it.
Sorry, Marco. I really like your work. Marco's ill. He's unwell. Here's hoping he gets better. This should be fun. We've seen a few big boy showdowns between Luchasaurus and the Butcher. They're going to do that again. I would say they're going to pop the crowd with the inevitable Luchasaurus hot tag. But last week, we saw Jurassic Express build a tag match around a different formula. They usually go for Jungle Boy taking the heat and getting beaten down, and then Luchasaurus comes in and goes and does his kicks and his stuff. Last week it was the other way around. Luchasaurus took the beat down.
Yeah.
So could be a fun match. I really enjoy Butcher and the Blade so much. Like as a trio, they're just great.
Who do you think goes over here?
I don't know, but I was slowly getting excited with the wonderful booking opportunities laid out by my esteemed colleague Andy Murray. And then halfway through his sentence, I was just thinking, yeah, you have to temper your excitement. It's just going to be a weird pro wrestling show, man.
Come on, Mikey. Come on. Let's
I
get up.
trust the process, but it was when he was saying a hot tag. It's like a hot tag is meaningless in this context. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just going to look so incongruous and weird. Oh, man.
Imagine how
I hate all
thunderous
this.
that Butcher and the Blade theme song is going to sound in an empty building. It already sounds like the end of the world. In this one, it's going to be awesome.
If I'm going to be unbiased, yet again, it feels like between these 2 tag matches, they've just done 2 6-mans, and now they're doing 2 tag team matches the previous week.
Yeah.
The next week. That's maybe a bit lazy.
Very.
But then again, considering the current situation, I suppose needs must as of right now.
Yeah.
We'll
I'll let them, I'll completely let them get away with sort of spinning their wheels in this moment, to quote European Football Manager.
indeed. The intriguing thing with both shows, NXT and AEW Dynamite, is what's going to happen with their big shows going forward. We've got TakeOver Tampa, which obviously is not going to be taking place over WrestleMania weekend, but it's been speculated that it could take place on just a Wednesday night, I suppose. And then there's also Blood and Guts, which I think we all assumed in the office would be off, and yet seems to be going ahead.
Yeah. As for NXT, if they're not doing NXT TakeOver Tampa, and they shouldn't from the Performance Center, again, just thinking practically of the amount of bodies going in and out of that facility, it's best left to 1 show a week. That's heavy on pro wrestling and heavy on pro wrestling personnel. And with NXT, without a destination to get to, and given that, again, under the circumstances, they, in the main roster, are doing this as well, limiting the amount of pro wrestling matches that happen live on the show, they're best off just doing, on a weekly basis, 1 teased or otherwise confirmed TakeOver Tampa match per week on the show, and that should be the hook of the show. It limits the amount of people who have to wrestle together because of the Performance Center traffic. I just think, 1 TakeOver match per week on Wednesdays.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Spread them out a little bit. Don't go for the all-in approach of throwing them all on 1 week. That'd be chaos. That'd be crazy. Blood and Guts is a weird one. The War Games match is all about heat, right? It's not all about psychology-less, stupid stunt spots, NXT. It's a heat-based match. It's a storytelling classic. How do you do that in an empty building? I don't think you do. I think they're going to announce its postponement tonight. I don't know when the hell they're going to do it. But
I suppose it makes sense if you're AEW to do it when the majority of eyes will be on your products. As much as you can announce it on Twitter and continuously announce it, the initial announcement should probably be on TV.
Yeah, I mean, but if you look at the indications they did a Road to Dynamite that they do weekly. They dropped that earlier this week, and they seem to be indicating heavily that this match is going to go ahead as scheduled per the original calendar. I don't know if that's the best idea, but like this company, if you look at the way they tell their storylines, like, I'm not just being a shill here. It's all so intricate and mapped out, and the moving parts interact with each other so well and so congruously that if they were to say, right, we have to postpone this match because we want to give the fans the full Blood and Guts experience, and there's all sorts of ways they could spin it to the point that it feels like we're not being deprived of it. We're getting the best possible version just a little bit later. What then do the Inner Circle and the Elite do? Do they just sort of park their beef? Will that be hard to believe in when the match does come? Will there be a force of goodwill under these circumstances to just switch your brain back into blood and guts mode when it does happen? How much ultimately does any of this matter? I would love for them personally to withhold this match until the first indication of, right, everyone can just do a live show again. And then boom, blood and guts, whichever arena possible, bang, 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 put that in. I am a pedantic stickler for storytelling detail and continuity. But if they were to just say, right, the Inner Circle and the Elite, we're not going to war just yet. The fans deserve the biggest possible version of this war. I would love just the few odd interaction where Chris Jericho might, for example, say, oh, well, you've bottled it. You're the EVPs. Clearly, you're making this decision. You've bottled it. And then he can go on a weeks-long crusade of taunting them for bottling it. There's all sorts of things they can do. I want the loud reaction to this.
Yeah.
I'd be happy with Chris Jericho just cutting a promo for 2 hours, to be honest, tonight. But anyway,
Yeah.
if they do go ahead, not necessarily with the match next week, but with the plan for Blood and Guts in the future, tonight could be used to decide who gets the advantage for Blood and Guts. Who's your money on, Inner Circle or Elite?
The Elite with John Moxley as the fifth man, surely. With Nasty Nick being ruled out, being squashed underneath a door last week. Heinous, brutal, bloody assault. I think that John Moxley coming in to even the odds and prevent the numbers game seems like the logical thing.
Having said that, when it comes to a War Games match, sometimes they lean towards the advantage in terms of the match being the heel team, because then you have the consistent 2-on-1, 3-on-2 sort of advantage.
Yeah, for the psychological complexion of the match, they should do this absolutely invariably. That's the way I would personally do it. Not to be a complete arse-licker, but I would trust them to do it the other way around, particularly given the machinations of the storyline between Hangman Page and Matt Jackson, because if they have the 2-on-1 advantage, because of the tensions between them, they would probably not utilize it. So I think there's an interesting storyline wrinkle to take there. But ultimately, it should always be the heels if they don't go that route with those specific two people. Yeah. I think Nick Jackson will make his heroic babyface return. I think it was a storyline explanation just to allow the guy some paternity leave because his wife is expecting or may have actually dropped at this point.
Enjoy your time with your family, man.
I can
What
just
a baby. Imagine not loving the sugar, man.
I know.
My thought process is with Matt Jackson and Hangman Page is it sort of reminds me of that riddle about the chicken, the fox, and the grain, and taking it across the river, where you can only have one in each one. You can't leave the fox with the chicken. You can't leave the chicken with the grain. It's like, do you leave Matt and Hangman Page, if they're going to do akin to War Games, in the cage together, or do you put them into the match together? It's like there's no good scenario where they don't just flip each other off and start fighting with each other.
That's fantastic.
Thank you.
That's a beautiful little thing.
Finally, let's talk about the ratings. Obviously disappointing last week for both shows. It strikes me that there can only really be one winner this week. As much as it's going to be great to watch the video packages that NXT creates, the appointment to watch is surely AEW this week.
Momentum plus marketing equals ratings. Thank you, Tony Maglio. AEW feels like it has the momentum. AEW has the marketing because it's going to have wrestling on the show and it has the Exalted One's reveal. That makes a pretty simple sum to me, although I will wrap it all up by saying in this situation, maybe doesn't matter as much as usual, right?
Yeah, Meltzer said exactly that as well, didn't he, on Twitter?
Doesn't matter, I hope, genuinely for NXT, because as much as I have a whinge about the creative process, there's loads of great talent on there that I enjoy watching. I hope, given that it's been thoroughly de-emphasized compared to Raw and SmackDown, that the audience doesn't take that as an instruction to not care about it. Truly, I do hope this. AEW is going to do a bloodbath for the sake of trying to restore normalcy and to maintain everything despite the unfolding events. Should we do our customary ratings predictions?
Well, yeah, I was going to ask you, before we quickly do that, do you feel we've seen a boost in the ratings, certainly for SmackDown, maybe with the intrigue of the Empty Arena show? Do you think this could be one of the most successful weeks, arguably for both shows, in terms of the fact of, people aren't going out of the house?
I don't know how to do this. You do that.
But do you think that could play a factor?
Say all that again, pal?
In terms of the fact that, we saw SmackDown get an increase in viewership.
Yeah, I mean, there's no other live escapism. I mean, we are so lucky in the Western world where I can just go on Netflix and decide, right, okay, I don't have to buy an additional thing to keep me through this. What should I watch? City Slickers. Fantastic. That's going to be us three when we're out of this whole mess. We've decided we're going to herd some cows, like
hate
Billy
cows.
Crystal et al.
DDT.
You'd love Norman, mate. You'd love Norman, the baby calf.
All right, mate, that was a bit intense.
Anyway,
So I bonded with Norman watching this film last night.
your prediction.
I think that 950 plays, sadly, 600.
I'm trying to look at last week's ratings, but I'm not going to.
670, I think, for NXT,
So-
7 something for AEW.
Think about
Well, write it down so I can take the picture.
Okay. Oh, no, I'm just saying that's what he said.
Right,
That's what
okay.
the ratings were last week.
I think AEW's audience, right, has shown that it is more influenced by big outside things. There's been big sports games, there's been presidential stuff. When that happens, the AEW audience is more inclined to bugger off.
Woke, connected, and empathetic, I would describe our thing.
Absolutely. So with that in mind, I'm going to be a bit more conservative to keep our... I don't know what this is. I'm going to say AEW is only going to do about 800K. And NXT's going to run it pretty close, man. Like, people have got nothing else to watch, and that audience is hardcore 770.
770. I'm going to go, probably sort of splitting the difference here. I'm going to go 900 plays 800 in AEW's favour. But let us know your thoughts ahead
Doesn't matter.
of AEW Dynamite and NXT tonight in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And subscribe to What Culture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts from, for daily wrestling podcasts as well. Plus, you can let us know your thoughts on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE. Watch there. Follow all three of us. You can follow Andy at...
Yeah, you can follow me at Andy H. Murray. The H stands for Hero Clicks, which I'm holding to the camera.
Have you done Heidenreich yet?
Yeah, I've done that. I've done Heidenreich, mate. But
Running low. You're going to have to get your
spending too
dictionary.
much time hanging out with Michael Cole in bathrooms.
You can follow Michael Sidgwick at...
M. Sidgwick.
What does the M stand for?
Michael.
You can follow me at Adam Will. Follow us all at What Culture WWE. This has been the Wednesday Night War preview. My thanks to Andy and to Michael. Thank you for watching, and we will see you soon.
You won't see me. I'm working from home.